this issue we have been lied to by the federal government for so long. Like, it's going to take a bit for middle America to get out of that bullshit. And I tell people, one of the things that have changed when you see cannabis demographics and you see the charts going up, one of the big changes was the broad use of the internet. Now, like when I grew up, you got lied to. You got your information from your school teachers, cops, the government, blah, blah, blah. Now, any 16-year-old kid in America can type in marijuana on YouTube and learn about it.
Right.
And so I think you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And if you look at trends, you see after early 2000s a noticeable spike in what people's views on cannabis were. And I think that's because we could access information and not get lied to. Now we've seen Colorado for 7 years, Washington State for 7 years, Nevada, California. Now everyone's like, wait, they said the world was going to end and the wheels were going to fall off and there would be catastrophe and disaster. Now, when that didn't happen and we have the data, other states can sit there and go, you know what, I'm cool with this in my backyard. And that's when you see, slowly the wall breaking apart and the wall crumbling is when we're like, wow, everything they said was going to happen in Colorado didn't. and hey, maybe we can.
Maybe we were lied to.
Yes. And it takes some time. I hate to say it. It just takes some time for middle America to get. And you guys have been activists for a while, and anyone in, this cannabis culture has been around for 50 years.
Oh,
but we've never been able to sort of break through to middle America because it was always a us versus them, They
were hippies. They were like, arrest them. They're listening to jazz music.
Those are weirdos that consume cannabis.
Or Mexicans.
Marijuana. Yes. And now when you break that down, you're like, well, shit, everyone does this. Then the the issues of middle America start to peel away, and they look around and are like, oh shit, and they start raising their hand. I consume cannabis. I do it on a Friday night. I didn't think you did it. And once they realize that, then it's like the normalcy factor, and you see this play out. I mean, we'll talk about some of these state ballot initiatives, and I saw this in Oklahoma 2 years ago when the Oklahoma initiative passed. 56%. Like, you can't find probably a more conservative, religious right, Bible Belt state than Oklahoma. And
it was, 100%. And just to break into the Oklahoma reporting, 65.4% for Trump, 32.3% for Biden. It is red as the day is long. One of the best medical states out there.
Yeah,
if not the best.
And look at Mississippi. Look at South Dakota. These are red states, and traditionally it was like, oh, cannabis is blue states. No, look at what's happening now, and that's going to be, hey, this is now. I've looked at this as a nonpartisan, bipartisan issue for a while now.
Yeah.
But the numbers were never there. Now you're starting to see this, and it's like, holy shit, 2/3 of Mississippi likes this, and 2/3 of South Dakota want this. Damn.
Well, it's that damn thing, and then especially considering it's not a red-blue thing, but how do we extract the law enforcement element out of it so that they don't think that everything's going to suddenly they can't arrest these people, and how do you educate them?
So here's, and that's an important point, and here's I think the $64,000 question. So, and you ask any active duty cop. They change their opinion the day after they retire or the day after they become former cops. And there's, cops against prohibition and different groups out there, law enforcement against prohibition, LEAP, other ones. So much of police force's budgets go to chasing this plant. So now you're going to strip that away. Now I'm a cop and I've talked to cops. Cannabis arrest, it's such an easy arrest. You look, you see smoke coming out of a car, you smell it, you pull someone over, bam.
And how are they? Are they drunk? Are they violent? No, they're usually docile. They're happy.
I check off the box to my supervisor. It's easy. It's simple. And so, it's just this big circular. They're chasing money. They're doing it.
Yeah.
Until you can address that issue of cops, just getting money and funding, I wish you could say, hey, go after the serious drugs, go after the serious crime,
those are scary
serious issues. But it's such an easy rigged game for them to make marijuana arrests. I mean, what Normal put out numbers recently. It's still 600,000 arrests. Give me a break.
Yeah.
It's every second they're pulling someone over. And the worst part is that leads you to leads you to, hey, I'm going to get into your car. Hey, I'm going to get into your house. Hey, I think it smells like something. You're into trouble. Like, it just leads to so many issues where you see police violence happen that all started with, I think I smell something, and you take that away, and then like so many things will go away with just that.
Michael, you brought up a great point about the internet and legalization. I wanted to point out analytics because I'm a little bit of a nerd. The searches went up as of yesterday.
Yeah.
And look at the places that search South Dakota, Montana, New Jersey, Mississippi, all. And then if you look at the cannabis term search, something just as well, South Dakota, Oklahoma, these people are looking up the ignorance that they were taught. They're being, they're becoming woke, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. No, and it's just, you saw this with the gay rights movement for years. And that is, once people started going, wait, their coworker, their relative, their friend, their family member were all of a sudden gay, lesbian, and then they're like, whoa, you're just like us. What the fuck? What are we doing?
Right.
Cannabis is the same thing, where it's just a matter of, like I said, there were so many years it was us versus them, or you would hide the fact. Now you can be pretty open and know that your life's not going to get ruined, although people's lives are still being ruined because of this. I look at during the 2016 presidential election, Jeb Bush was sort of ridiculed on stage because he had smoked cannabis and blah, 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 and nothing happened. Well, guess what? When you're a rich white kid going to a private school and you smoke cannabis, nothing happens. But if you're not that, think about your life could get over, and think about how your career could get ended, and how maybe you don't go to college, and how maybe your path changes, all because you don't have that privilege. And so there's so many things, we look at over the past 50 years of so many injustices that have come from this. And honestly, just the way this whole thing started was for political, like it was started to be divisive.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things like, hey, let's use this to be divisive.
What do you guys think now about the states that have just legalized recreational? We all know that they're not going to have stores next week, but now that possession is legal, and do you think there'll be a new black market for a little bit, or a traditional market? And, because that's what happened in Washington. When you have the rule but no regulation, people do what they want.
So, one, we as the cannabis industry, we want the illicit market to go down. Yes. And we want the tax and regulated market. We want people to want to buy from a regulated market, because then you know what it is. You have testing. And, let's be honest, you can get away with murder when it comes to selling strains nowadays.
Yes.
No, it's a marketing ploy. Just call it whatever you want.
Cookies. I'm going to rap about it.
Yeah, until we have the science and regulations behind it. But with that being said, you can do regulations wrong, and you can overtax this industry and overregulate this industry. So operators say, you know what, I don't want to participate in this industry. And in the black market, the illicit market never goes away. And a consumer will pay a premium. You're going to pay your premium for organic grapes at Whole Foods. People will pay premiums for stuff. But if their cannabis is, X amount, but it's half as much going to their regular dealer they've been going to for the past 10 years, they're not going to go to a regulated market. And so policymakers need to know this. And you have to remember, this has never been done before. There's not a history book on how you regulate the cannabis industry. So you look to what worked in Colorado, what worked in Washington State, what didn't work in Washington State, what didn't work in California.
What's not working in Illinois. What I want to talk to you about then is, what's the NCIA's position on limited market versus open market states?
So we don't take positions at the state level because we let the states work it out. Most of our issue is at the federal level, getting the states. Our position is allow the states to have these arguments, allow these states, push this out of the federal government, allow the states to determine this, and let the states determine their own speed on how they want to do it. But we think it should be an open process. It should be an open process. There should be home grows. There should be a lot of these things. because
it's America. Like I don't like limited market states. So I don't like when a state is picking the winners and losers, and then there's only 5 operators, and it's still mostly illegal.
So
and, I don't think that's good for snuffing out the black market.
Yeah.
So NCIA we did a live NCIA election live stream yesterday, and we had a couple policy wonks on, and I asked that question about regulations. What are some lessons learned? And one of the big takeaways is do not have a very limited market. It just leads to corruption.
Yeah.
Lawsuits.
Yes, it leads to lawsuits. So, like, let's be honest. 5 licenses in New York City. Are you kidding me? You could have 5 licenses in one neighborhood. Like,
Right.
That's not going to do it. That just leads to compliance costs and the cost of entry in becoming millions of dollars. Whereas, to me, honestly, it should be the wild, wild west. It should be like Oklahoma. Look at Oklahoma. Yeah. You got a couple $100, you get in, you build a better mousetrap. You got a great idea. That's capitalism at its
That's it. That's America. And Michigan, I like too.
Let it work its way out. And if you can't grow cannabis and sell cannabis and make money, you're probably not going to be in the market, and the market will sort of work its way out.
Exactly.
That's right.
Happy Veterans Day, Mickey, and all the veterans out there.
Yes, thank you for your service, Miggy. Tell us again which branch of the military were you a veteran of?
10 years in the Navy, bro.
10 years in the Navy. All right.
Good time.
And you're still working.
Well,
on Veterans Day, no less.
Well, I like to say, because people say thank you for your service. I was in the Navy. I was on a boat that was not as bad as getting shot at. But there's also the drug war veteran, right? I like to think that, it's not just the military veterans, but it's also the civilian. Like when I was in the Navy, it was you fight for freedom, but you don't have freedom. And kind of the reason why I kind of got out, just so I can be involved with my kids' life and the world. So, yeah, here we are.
Speaking of that, thanks for tuning in on this Veterans Day. Give us the likes and subscribes to get more cannabis legalization news. And in good double POW, not double veteran kind of, like you were mentioning, like, so this guy was also a prisoner for cannabis, but also a veteran, an actual one like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Disabled veteran in Alabama released for medical marijuana possession. So disabled Iraqi veteran Sean Worsley is free, which is great. 10 months in Alabama jails for felony possession of medical marijuana, legal in his home state of Arizona.
He had the amount that I carry in my backpack now. It's fucking ridiculous.
How much is that? Because this is probably about like a gram, but a lot of this is industrial hemp.
He had like under an ounce.
Okay. Under an ounce.
I mean, right now I got a quarter in my bag, but
yeah, legal possession limits.
Yeah,
10 months.
So we got some people were wondering about the show if this is going to be the actual legalization being voted on. Not right now, folks.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like that's what we're talking about. Congress is voting on the actual legalization next month, and so next month this means in a lame duck session that they are going to go and vote on it, and it's fairly symbolic. It's really a symbolic act, and it's going to be a vote for the MORE Act, which is to decriminalize cannabis. And this is one of the new type of euphemisms that I'm quite fond of right now, by saying that the MORE Act is decriminalizing cannabis, when in fact the MORE Act totally removes marijuana from the Controlled Substances Act. So it's a full legalization.
Well, it shouldn't be.
Well, I just like using that phraseology, that the Marijuana Moment, big shout out to them. We have 4 more stories from their reporting. But the MORE Act to decriminalize cannabis. And then that's going to be a symbolic vote because you have a lame duck session, and the Republican Senate's not going to do like nothing but wipe its ass with it. And then it'll be a new Congress will get sworn in. And then Trump will be escorted kicking and screaming from the White House.
But this is going to be a lame duck session. This is why Georgia's so important coming up in January.
Georgia is huge in January.
If we just get a whole Democrat, unfortunately, this is where we're at. The Republicans have proven that everything's going to be fucking partisan. Everything's
partisan. I don't agree with that. If I could take the other side of that issue, yeah.
pushing.
It's not that partisan of an issue because, like,
It's not.
What is the Gallup poll in cannabis legalization news from this week? Gallup says 7 in 10 Americans support marijuana legalization. And if you hit the likes and the subscribes right now, you're going to be able to see, because we're going to do a drip of the biggest winner of election eve last week was, of course,
Marijuana.
Marijuana was the biggest winner. And so we have 5 new states, and we're doing 5 reports how to open a dispensary or grow in whatever state won. So we're going to have those 5 that we're going to record here after the show here. And then so tune in, give us those likes and subscribes, and they will come up on your feed. But man, that's one of the cool things about this stuff we're going to be going over with the 5 states, and that stat that says 70% of Americans believe in cannabis legalization. These were states like Mississippi. These were states like Montana. These were states like South Dakota, not bastions of liberal, hippies. It's not Portland.
Yeah, but we say that, but as someone who's traveled the country, and I go into these states with trepidation and fear, for many reasons, and most of the time it's not bad. As a matter of fact, there are 74 million people out there who are with us.
Yeah, that's right. And then that's right. And so somebody's asking, why it's asking, Congress is really going to vote on it. And once again, yes, that's right. Congress is going to be voting on this next month. House leadership announces. So that's great. And then now that we're sitting here getting toward the end of the year, what happens is how the government is funded. And Miggy, one of the things that we like to do on Cannabis Legalization News is bore people with legislative procedure. Do you know when the budget year ends for the federal government?
We should have like a porno music going on for this conversation, but no, I have no idea.
It's about September 30th. And so that's usually when a lot of deadlines come up and loom. And then the dreaded CR, the continuing resolutions. And some continuing resolutions are now coming up in the Senate bill because the Congress has the purse strings and sets the amount of monies at the federal level. And so because of how bad the USDA's farm regulations were for hemp, these senators are pushing back against the USDA rules, which so far have already been continued until the end of next budget year, FY 2021, September 30th of 2021. So now it looks like the funding might start pushing the Department of Agriculture to back the fuck off of hemp. Yes. And make that industry work like it has been. And it just looks like the 2014 Farm Bill may be kicked out until maybe even 2022. We'll have to see where we're at. But with a new Department of Agriculture in there to come up with new rules, the final rule might be out sometime next season. And it might be a much better understanding of the 0.3% Delta 9, if they really just read it as Delta 9 THC, or like 1% total THC, something closer to what they do in Vermont. Bernie Sanders, the Department of Agriculture's head. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, here, how about this? Pretend world. 2021.
Oh, yeah.
Biden won. Senate takes over. More act passes. Cannabis is descheduled. Well, how will that affect hemp? I mean, overall, this arbitrary number, can we redefine hemp as just being like hemp, the non-fun stuff? I mean,
well, that's one of the reasons why I think hemp should be defined like almost as a genetic, and so if you're doing it as a genetic and you have like a 20-to-1 ratio of THC to CBD, then it's like definitively proof that you're growing that not for the THC. And you can have those types of seeds that have a low enough amount of THC to not be psychoactive in and of themselves. But now people are saying like the CBG flower makes them feel good. Some people really like the Delta 8 isomers of hemp that's out there. And those are pretty fascinating. So that's another one of the pieces of content that we're going to have over at Cannabis Industry Lawyer. It won't be free, but it'll be long. Every state about like where you can ship, what their locality laws are, and then like if it's legal to ship everywhere with your hemp. So it should be fun.
This is why you guys are important. Again, the cannabis business lawyer.
Right.
This is going to be the new semantics for business. This is why you're necessary, because there is 160 pages or whatever. I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to go through that.
Well, not only that, they suck, and then not only that, they conflict. And so, like now, we have this patchwork of laws for hemp flower, and then sometimes for these hemp derivatives. But then you have the rule or the definition that says no, that's hemp. It's THC compliant. Sorry, and it's going to be a really bright future. I hope. I just don't think we're going to get legal weed in the next 4 years. I could be wrong. I just don't think so.
If it's descheduled, though, at that point, though, we're not arresting people, right? There's no longer smells of crime.
That's right. Then you're going to have kind of what's going on in hemp. And so you're going to have lack of federal guidance. It won't be a schedule substance anymore. They are going to want their tax dollars. And so that's where the regulations are going to come in. But then, you get into supremacy clause arguments. So like right now, if I just took that pound of hemp and I got an order for that pound of premium smokable hemp flower in Indianapolis. I hear that they've banned it, but then there's been some litigation about it, and so then I don't do the best job that I could have done mailing this to Indianapolis. I like what's like the most smelly way I could do it, like a paper envelope. I'm really just mailing this to get caught. And then if somebody gets arrested for it, sue them, say like, no, you're interfering with the interstate commerce of lawfully produced hemp. That was hemp, releases property. And also you're not allowed to arrest them,
Well, now you're talking about a commerce situation, but like say, as somebody who just really likes it and I carry, say 20 pounds with me and decide to travel cross country like I do to get my son in Minnesota, and I get pulled over in Idaho,
right?
And now it's been rescheduled. Hypothetically, they can't arrest me, right? There is no premise.
Well, there's possession limits on THC cannabis, but there's no possession limits on hemp, as far as I'm aware.
But once cannabis itself gets descheduled, won't it be a safe zone altogether?
The state laws will be the ones that are enforcing their stuff. So you'd still have state laws enforcing. And so that's one of the reasons why, like, I'm not the biggest fan of these possession limits of like an ounce and whatnot. I'm just not, I don't think that's the way to enforce that law, and it continues to make it somewhat a crime, and that's really what you're trying to avoid. Like nobody's supposed to get arrested for weed. I thought we were very clear on this. Nobody gets arrested for weed. There's some stuff out of Texas. Lawmaker files some Texas lawmakers pre-file bills for marijuana. So voting to legalize marijuana in some form is one of the pieces of legislation that is on the docket for next year in Texas. That's when we should try to get Senator-elect Roland Gutierrez, who is as SB 140. We should try to get Senator Gutierrez on the show to discuss SB 140. So let's and then look, here he is on Twitter. Okay, so I'll just go tweet at him. That's how the internet works, right? Like we got cannabis legalization news. News is good, but then it looks like one of the news is delay because now that a lot of these the cases are spiking. You know what it's doing, it right?
What do you mean, like events and partying or what?
No, it's vitamin D.
Oh yeah,
that's what it is. I'm telling you, it's vitamin D, man. Because like when it's the summertime, sure, it was still out there. You can still get it. But, now that everybody's vitamin D deficient because it's all cold and they're inside and they don't get the sun that they used to. I think that's what it is. I think that's what's causing the spike.
Tell you what, man, I feel a little jaded right now. I just shared a link in the private chat, but the CDC meets with medical marijuana patients to discuss cannabis as alternative pain therapy.
Cannabis as alternative pain therapy, which is kind of strange. When it comes right down to it, you shouldn't have an alternative pain therapy for a Schedule I drug. I mean, replace cannabis or marijuana in this sense with the word heroin, because that's essentially where the law is to this day. It's still characterizing at a federal level. First off, they define the cannabis plant as something called marijuana for some reason. I wonder if that's racist at all. And then second, it's classified next to heroin. Still, in 2020, it's going to make it to 2021, still being classified as heroin.
Yeah.
And the CDC is meeting to discuss, wow, can we use cannabis for pain?
Yeah, and it's got to be more than that. Remember when I did my little video that I got taken down, and it helps your immune system overall. It's a wellness issue. It should be.
Yeah, a lot of terpenes are antiviral, and then of course there's cannabinoids. There's been patents on cannabinoids for a while. I mean that patent 663507, the cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectorants. that expired. I mean, that's how long cannabis has been prohibited. They patented it and it expired and it's still treated as heroin. You know, what the fuck is that?
And then let's talk about like the upcoming Biden administration. You know, stocks went up hugely right after the announcement. And, you know, will we see that? You know, they want to deschedule it. Keep it on the schedule. Get it off the fucking schedule.
Get it off the schedule, because then that's when you can really actually get industry into it. You know, I mean, everything right now is money laundering in it. But, you know, even states that don't have nothing, like Wisconsin, lawmakers in Wisconsin Capitol vote to allow marijuana use in public. Now, you see how cleverly they kind of couched that. What this really means is that the city of Madison, Wisconsin is really the only bastion of liberal pot smoking hippies in the state. And they said it is now, city officials have voted to remove most local penalties for marijuana possession and consumption, effectively allowing cannabis use by all adults 18 and older within the city limits. And so they've decrimmed in Madison an ounce use and possession. And so that's great. You know, if you magically get an ounce of cannabis in Madison, Wisconsin, you can't buy it, you can't sell it. And technically, if the state wants to arrest you, I guess they could. But
you know, the whole decriminalization thing. I mean, California, when I was younger, it had decriminalization before Prop 215. There were several times, yeah, I saw that.
yeah.
But you know, I was thinking more of the Prince Andrew shit, man. But
excuse me,
Prince Valiant,
stiff wind, yeah. But it's again, you know, it's good news. At least there is one city in Wisconsin that is not totally anti-weed, but Wisconsin still has no medical cannabis. They may have like they do have industrial hemp, but they have no medical program that's worthwhile, and they have no adult use program.
Yeah, no, it's a shit show. I mean, the whole process is always a shit show, right? Like, first little pockets of counties or whatever, decriminalize it, prove that the world doesn't melt down and the apocalypse doesn't happen, and then people go, "Oh, you know what? We like money."
You know what I like? Money. You remember that movie Idiocracy from 2006 where that guy was like,
"Oh my God,
money." Yeah, it's kind of what it is. They kind of like eventually go back to that.
Yeah,
and those are the Virginia cases. Before we turn to the Virginia cases, there was one case out of somewhere that I wanted to touch on. Or not case, I mean, like, you know, actual news story, but I can't find it in front of me. I must have like overridden it by now.
What's that?
The story that I've replaced on my browser, and I can't remember what it was.
Oh, well, you know, a good place to go is just Marijuana Moment.
I do go to Marijuana Moment. It was probably actually on there. It's just that the case that it was, I just can't recall. And it probably also had to do with some type of decriminalization. Like one of the governors was popping off that said, you know, the lack of federal regulation and oversight. So like they have the federal law that says marijuana is heroin, but they just aren't enforcing it.
Yeah. You know, before we do transition, though, there's an article in Forbes that I came across that I found really it just hurt me, man. So COVID-19, not marijuana legalization, is releasing cannabis offenders from prison. So this is an article about Richard DeLisi, a gentleman I've been trying to help for years. His son died. He's got a daughter and another son out of, you know, they grew up without him for over like 30 years. And so I just, yeah, you know, if legalization can actually free people, that'd be nice instead of a pandemic.
Yeah, that would be nice instead of a pandemic.
You know. But yeah, then
have this one up. All right. Well, there's really only one place to go now because the biggest news out of the country this week was out of Virginia. And so in Virginia, we had the Governor Ralph Northam, made clear his intentions to help further cannabis legalization and efforts in the legislature. At least that's what Candid Chronicle. And see what they did there with the Chronicle. That sounds like a legitimate news organization. The Candid Chronicle was reporting. And so they previously, the decriminalization that came from April 12th. And the Virginia Mercury is reporting that Virginia lawmakers say doors open to legalizing marijuana in 2021. But in the Senate, they give it slightly better than 50-50 odds. That's not bad.
Well, you know, and I think with people like Chelsea Higgs, Wise, and kind of like Stacey Abrams, how she helped everybody, you know, in Georgia. You know, if you just get enough people, let's get the information out there. I think we could flip that.
Well, let's hope so, man, because like that's one of the things, some of these experts are citing that Governor Northam's plan to legalize marijuana needs to address racial disparities. And that is very important and prevalent all across the legalization movement. It actually helps put it over the top very often when they get the social justice aspects of legalization involved. The Massachusetts delivery license, for example, as a social justice component or a social equity component, the 26 social equity licenses should be up for grabs sometime in Arizona 1 year in the future, near future. And let's find out what we can expect with the Virginia version of adult use and how they're going to employ social equity there.